Picture this. It is 1,925. Calvin Coolidge is in the White House. The Jazz Age is at its peak. And in Peoria, Illinois, two heavy equipment companies merge into one, creating a machine-building giant that will help construct the highways, dams, and infrastructure of an entire century of American growth. The company is Caterpillar, and for the next 100 years, Illinois is home. Now, fast forward to the 14th of June, 2022. The press release is short, the language is clean. Chairman and CEO Jim Umpleby says, "We believe it's in the best strategic interest of the company to make this move." The new address is Irving, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. One sentence, 100 years, done. And here is what makes this more than a corporate relocation story. The governor of Illinois, who watched this happen, is a man worth an estimated $3.7 billion, a billionaire, who inherited a fortune built on exactly the kind of productive capital that Illinois has been systematically driving out of its own state. And his response to losing a 100-year institution? Disappointment, optimism, a pledge to do better, and then silence while the next company ran the same calculation and got the same answer. Before we go any further, subscribe to the States Insider right now so you do not miss stories like this one. Hit the like button. And here is your question for the comments. When a billionaire governor watches a 100-year company lead his state and responds with a press release, is that a failure of policy or a failure of leadership? Drop your answer below. To understand why Caterpillar's departure hits differently than any other corporate relocation, you have to understand what this company actually represents to Illinois. Not in symbolic terms, in structural ones. Caterpillar generates roughly $59 billion in annual revenue. It is one of America's most recognizable industrial brands. The kind of company whose yellow machines appear in every major construction project on every continent. It was formed in Peoria 100 years ago and spent a century as part of Illinois' industrial identity, in the same way that Ford is tied to Michigan. And the warning that it would leave came a full decade before it actually did. Here is what is actually happening, with specific numbers attached. Illinois has the worst pension crisis of any state in the country. That is not a political talking point. That is the finding of the Equitable Institute, which ranked Illinois dead last among all 50 states in pension funding ratios for 3 consecutive years in a row. The state's 5 pension systems carry $143.5 billion in state-managed unfunded liabilities. When you add in Chicago and local government obligations, the total unfunded liability exceeds $211 billion. Illinois is the only state in the country with more than $100 billion in state-managed pension debt. California is second at $90 billion. Illinois is not close to second place. It is in a category by itself. If the state put an extra $1 million every single day toward that debt, it would take approximately 600 years to pay it off. And here is where that pension crisis connects directly to Caterpillar's exit. That debt does not sit quietly in an accounting ledger. It drives property tax rates, which are the highest effective rate in the country. It drives the corporate income tax rate at 9.5%, the second highest in the nation. It is the reason Illinois carries the worst bond rating of any American state. Every company running a location analysis in Illinois is running it against the backdrop of a government with $143 billion in pension obligations. No credible path to close the gap. And a political class that responds to each warning with promises, and to each departure with disappointment. Texas has no corporate income tax, 0. And Caterpillar had been doing that math for years before it finally moved. Now here is the angle that the mainstream coverage of this story has consistently refused to say plainly, and it is the one that matters most. A decade before Caterpillar announced its Texas move, the company's CEO went to Springfield and delivered a warning that could not have been clearer. Illinois was making it harder to do business. If the trajectory continued, companies would do what businesses do when the math stops working. They would leave. That warning was public. It was documented. And Illinois' political leadership heard it, acknowledged it, and continued exactly as before, raising the corporate tax rate, accumulating more pension debt, watching the business climate ranking fall further. And then, When Caterpillar finally announced the move in 2022, Governor J.B. Pritzker expressed disappointment. He pointed to job growth elsewhere in the state and pledged a better business climate. Let that sit with you for a moment. A man with a personal fortune of $3.7 billion. A man who has never had to run a location analysis on whether his personal wealth could afford to stay in Illinois, expressed disappointment. That a manufacturing company with 17,000 Illinois workers could no longer afford the cost of keeping its headquarters in the same state. The irony of a billionaire governor pledging a better business climate for the companies that his own policies helped push out is not a small detail. It is the entire story. Caterpillar was not the first company to run this calculation. It will not be the last. Boeing relocated its corporate headquarters from Chicago to Virginia. Citadel, the $60 billion hedge fund built by Ken Griffin, moved to Miami. Griffin said explicitly that Chicago had become a city where the cost of operating had grown structurally irrational. Morton Salt, which had been in Illinois for 176 years, relocated to Kansas. Tyson Foods moved to Arkansas. Kraft Heinz moved to Pittsburgh. The Illinois Policy Institute documented dozens of Fortune 500 headquarters lost over the past 2 decades. Each departure received the same response from Springfield. The specific exit was explained away. The broader pattern was not addressed. Illinois currently ranks 37th in the country for business climate. Texas ranks in the top tier. Those rankings do not exist because consultants prefer warmer weather. They exist because 30 years of compounding policy decisions in Illinois have produced a cost environment that increasingly cannot compete with states that made different choices. There is also a layer beneath the headline number that will never get its own press release, but will show up clearly in the data over the next 5 years. Downtown Peoria and Deerfield are already absorbing what corporate departures always leave behind: vacant office space that does not fill overnight. Suppliers and vendors whose primary client relationship just signed a lease in Irving. Restaurants near the old headquarters campus that ran on the foot traffic of corporate employees who no longer park in those lots. Local tax receipts that depended on the income and spending of executive-level workers who have relocated to Texas. That damage does not land in a single announcement. It compounds quietly in vacancy rates and municipal budgets until a city realizes the anchor it counted on for a generation is simply no longer there. And there is a brain drain dimension that is harder to measure, but ultimately more damaging. The young engineer, mapping out a career, is watching where the senior roles are, where headquarters jobs exist, where the decision makers actually sit. If those people are increasingly in Irving and Dallas, that is where ambitious people plan to go. Once that shift embeds itself in career geography, it becomes self-reinforcing in ways no pledge from a billionaire governor can reverse. Here's the question that nobody in Springfield is willing to answer plainly. Caterpillar's CEO warned Illinois 10 years before the move. He described exactly what was coming. And the state's response over that decade was to compound the very conditions that produced the warning. At what point does a warning stop being a warning and start being a description of what already happened? Caterpillar was born in Peoria in 1925. The men who built it were building the infrastructure of a growing nation. They went where the conditions made their work possible. What changed after 100 years is not the instinct. What changed is the direction. The $59 billion company that spent a century defining Illinois' industrial identity did not leave because it stopped believing in manufacturing. It left because the state that raised it kept making it more expensive to stay than to go. And on the 14th of June 2022, the math produced an answer that no pledge of a better business climate could change. Caterpillar followed the conditions. And right now, the conditions keep pointing toward Texas. This is the States Insider. Subscribe to this channel if you want to keep following what the numbers actually say. Hit the like button to push this to more people who need to see it. And drop a comment below. What would it actually take for Illinois to stop the next major employer from running the same calculation? Because the math is public. The warnings came a decade ago. And Springfield still does not have a clear answer. Stay informed, stay sharp, never stop following the money. I will see you in the next investigation.